reception. Hey, I don't want to talk. I'm breaking up. I'm breaking up.
So we're going to visit the most anticipated park of the entire summer. Researching on the internet, we felt like the east side of the park was going to be more to our particular taste, but we wanted to see the entire park. So our game plan was going to be to come up the west side of Glacier, visit West Glacier for a short period, and then we had 7 nights reservation over on the east side of the park at St. Mary's Campground. So on the west side, we found a spot at Apgar Campground. We didn't have reservations for this campground, but as we drove through, we saw there were roughly a dozen or so sites available to us. We got there about midday, so it was about noon. Our site was a pull-through site. It was really nice, but as usually happens when we show up at a site, there's a couple of things to fix and address from the day before. Today was no exception. I try to involve the boys as much as I can when there are things to be fixed, and this time Owen got to help me address a leaky water filter. We were anxious to see something that very day, so we went ahead and drove over to Lake McDonald Lodge. Now we're always looking for a value activity that we can do, and on the lake there at the lodge there are some motorboats that you can rent. I think the rental was something very reasonable, like $20 an hour for this motorboat to go around the lake. We were a little rushed for time, so we didn't do it while we were here this time, but we said we would do it later. Later never happened. I regret that we let that pass by. So we ended up getting back to camp before dark, and we had a little downtime. We will choose solitude over amenities anytime, and so we knew that being in West Glacier, although it has many benefits, we knew the east side would be better suited for our taste. So the next morning, we hooked up and took off for St. Mary's Campground in the east side of Glacier. We took Highway 2 around the south side of the park, which is really the only way to go from the west side to the east side, unless you took going to the Sun Road through the park. But you can't take your camper with you on going to the Sun Road. Now, I've been known to stretch the rules a little bit, but I'm here to tell you we've been on going to the Sun Road. Do not stretch the rules. As we pulled in to the east entry of the park, there are only 2 or 3 convenience store type stores with some gas. So your options will definitely be limited here on the east side, but you have enough to survive. However, we highly suggest bring everything with you that you're going to need before you get to the east side of Glacier. Here's an example. The little convenience store as you enter the east gate, there's a convenience store on your left, and we went in there because we needed some milk. It was $8 for a gallon of milk. To be honest, being the frugal guy that I am, I think we ran out of milk halfway through the week, and I just drank my coffee black the rest of the week. Now, there aren't any amenities at St. Mary's Campground. There's water spigots around the campground every 100, couple of 100 feet. There's no electricity. There is a dump station, and there are very clean bathhouses. We were happy to use the bathhouses. The shower was very nice. And considering that the weather is usually as cool as it is up in Glacier, we didn't have a need for air conditioning. So on our visit, we honestly did not miss utilities, and it was very comfortable and convenient to stay there. Almost as soon as we showed up, I was at the tailgate of the truck, between the camper and the truck, and fooling with something in the bed of the truck, and a fox came running out of the field and came right between the truck and the camper, literally 5 feet from me. And then about 5 minutes later, he comes out of the bushes on the other side, passes right past me again, and this time he has a ground squirrel or gopher or whatever it was, a little one of those little rodents, prairie dog. I guess it's not a prairie dog in Glacier, but it's you get the point. That evening, our view was so phenomenal. We were happy to just sit around at the campsite and soak in the view, get a little relaxing and rest in. And that evening, we caught a ranger program. The ranger programs in all of these national parks have always added a richness to our experience, and we learn things we otherwise wouldn't have. If you're assuming that these ranger programs are just for kids, that's the wrong assumption, and we highly encourage that you attend them when you can. Now, Cindy has a brother, Eric, and his wife, Mary, who live in Seattle. And knowing how close we were going to be to Seattle, we made plans and arrangements for them to come and meet us at Glacier. It ended up being part of a larger trip for them, and it gave us a chance to visit. The plan was for them to stay a few days there with us. However, Mother Nature can change plans. The wind during our visit was crazy. And from watching other YouTubers that have visited Glacier, it seems like the wind is mostly crazy. So it doesn't make for a very good visit in a tent. Even being in our trailer was pretty scary. It was rocking with the wind, and the wind was so bad. There was a guy across from us in a Class A, a large Class A, and he had to pull his slides in. I talked to him later, and he said he pulled his slides in in fear that he was gonna get tipped over with the wind. This is the wind we were telling you about.
If you look behind you.
It's actually calm right now.
Yeah. This is the calmest it gets.
That second morning, we did have some nice weather, and we had a chance to do Going to the Sun Road. So Eric and Mary came with us, and we drove from the east side, headed towards the west, and went all the way up to Logan's Pass. Now, there's no way to really plan for this, but the Going to the Sun Road can only open when the road is clear of snow. And being in northern Montana, being clear of snow does not happen in the spring. It happens later in the year. We were there towards the end of June, and the road had opened like 4 days before we arrived. Could you imagine having driven as far as we had, show up, and not be able to do Going to the Sun Road? I hope that we're back in Glacier sometime in the future, but I'll tell you, we will not plan it for any time in June next time, maybe not even early July. If we go again, we'll make it late July before we go.
Where's it gonna end up?
Up here.
Which one?
That is on the right side of the Rockies. Right? So it would go to the
Mississippi goes to
Mexico.
The drive was incredible. Easily one of the top drives we've ever done in our lives. I heard about how scary the drive was. Honestly, the first time that we drove it, I didn't feel that fright at all as we went up and down. Now later in the week, we actually drove it a few more times. By the third time I drove it, I had had enough. My nerves were a little too rattled, and we were done. Waterfalls were everywhere. The snow melt had water running and falling from just about any place that it could. So we saw dozens and dozens and maybe hundreds of waterfalls. after that second day, we said our goodbyes to Eric and Mary.
Identical numbers of any number.
Oh, where did I put them?
You put them down right here.